Hey everyone, Dan here. We are just after close on Wednesday, April 7th. If you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, please share these videos if you are active on Facebook or Twitter or wherever else people share things, your own YouTube, Reddit. I would really appreciate some shares going out. It will help a ton. And without further ado, which I was trying not to say, but I cornered myself there. But let's get right into it. So 5 stocks to go over today. The first is EBON. Wanted to take a look at this. I got a few requests in, so I think all of these today are requests, yeah. So EBON has been caught in this pretty vicious downward channel since, well, I guess the first trading day was 315. And it even fell out of the bottom of it at one point, had to build itself back up to get in, bumped its head off of the top, and then has just continued to crumble down. So not the best looking situation right now for EBON in my opinion. I don't have a position. I don't have a position in any of the stocks that we're going to talk about today. Like I said, they were requests, so I'm covering them for folks who asked for them. But if I did, what I would be looking for as we struggle down through this channel, and right now it's just sort of in the middle of this channel and is not necessarily making a break for the exit. Even if it continued to consolidate sideways, it would take 4 trading days just to get itself out of this channel. So that's a pretty rough position to be in. Between this low, or this group of lows yesterday and this group of lows today, they are slightly higher lows, but I mean, that isn't, in my opinion, enough of an uptrend that's going to buck itself out of this down channel. So what I'd be looking for if I had a position here would be a cautionary zone at this 489. I would expect that if it dipped down that it would absolutely bounce off of that area. To me, 455, if it's a tolerable level, would be my absolute cut loss. And if it were able to get some steam and get itself out of the channel, it first needs to establish support on this 553 level right here, get itself some support, start getting resistance at 605, and then turn that to support. And then it could get itself out for sure if it got support at 605, getting itself to 666, and then 735 would be my upper price targets if I had them on this stock for now. But, I know some folks might have some much higher cost basis on this one, since it has fallen from like $12 here all the way down to well less than half that price right now. So good luck if you're in this one. It's a tough one, but if you have any hope, that's what I'd say it is. 553 initial support level. Get that 605 support. That should get you out of the channel if you have actual support at 605, and then some price targets at 666, 735. I'd be careful in that 489. All right, moving on. RIOT, which is a blockchain play, sort of a cousin to Mara, if you will, which we cover a lot on this channel. So a lot of these zones are old zones that we had drawn in. The channel is new, so let's start with the channel. So RIOT, has dipped down. Yeah, you see all this old charting activity. But RIOT was in this old channel that we had charted before. And one thing to know about RIOT, as I've watched it, just because I'm always playing Mara. I don't think I've ever played RIOT, but I know of it just because I play Mara a lot. But there was this huge gap here, and as we see it, it went through all this activity and came down and has now filled that gap, and that sort of caused it to touch the lower bound of this channel, or at least the downward momentum of it. And now it's coming back up. It did expose some other gaps here, but that's already been filled by this price action. So there's no exciting gaps that really need to be filled at this point, but Mara and RIOT are frequent gap fillers, and so I would often look for that, as another indicator of where the price activity may be going. It might take some time to play out, as you see with this gap over here. Like, you may have thought you were out of the woods when you got way up here, and then it came down and you bounced without even coming close to that gap, and you might have thought, oh, okay, now we're really out of the woods because I don't think it's going to go down to fill that gap. We're headed back up. But then it just fizzled out, popped down, tried to regain, and then it was, oh, fill that gap. So just keep in mind, it might take a few waves to fill out and close the gap, but it's pretty common with this one. But anyway, what I'd look at, or what I'd be looking for at this point is this March 24th entry into this channel, tested the bottom, tested the top several times, and now is back at the bottom. So to me, this is a really good potential dip buying opportunity. If I did dip buy it, I would expect, even if it fell out of the channel, that it bounces at that 47.30 level. That would be really important to me if I took a position, and then I'd have that immediate cut loss at 44.52. If I felt comfortable dip buying down further and seeing if it held 41.63, that would be my absolute lower end. But I could see the potential for like people who have more risk tolerance, dip buying down through here and then seeing if it bounces off that 41.63, and maybe you got yourself a nice cost basis at that point. The levels to establish some support at this point would be this 48.67 level, and then 49.90, 50.84, 51.79, basically the upper area of the price points on 49, 50, and 51. So the high 49s, high 50s, high 51s, and then you have a little bit of run room from that 51.79 level to that 54.45. So it could continue to hug like toward the bottom of this channel while it hits all these price targets for sure. But what I would be looking for if I wanted to take an entry is like any day now. Maybe even tomorrow at open, see what it's doing, and if it's looking like it's holding the bottom of this channel really well, or even if it bounced really strongly off of that 47.30 and looked like it was going to re-enter the channel, to me that would be a really strong potential for a dip buy on a bounce. All right. Oh, if I didn't mention it explicitly, these would be my upper price targets at the moment. And then obviously there's more to get to, but let's get to $57 and worry about it then. But if you wanted to trim or take some profit at those levels, that would be certainly understandable. All right, WIMI, I don't know, WIMI. Never heard of it, not familiar with it, but taking a look on a request. So, basically it's had this pretty wild drop over the last several period of time. It was almost up to 13 here in February, and then has just continuously crumbled down. It hasn't had really any luck getting a stabilized run up. It constantly has, these short-term run-ups, and then very quickly gets beat back down. So these can be good if you're watching very closely and you're able to catch these impulsive waves as they're happening at the moment. But it's pretty tough to play something longer term on a stock that has such wild swings as this one does. But what you could be looking for is it definitely also has a tendency with these wild swings in prices to open up some gaps that it may or may not fill. I don't know if WIMI is a constant gap filler or not. I just don't know it well enough. But you see this gap here was filled. This one is probably not filled. No. So, your best opportunity, honestly, at this point, is that it runs back up to the 7.87 level, maybe $8 to fill that gap. Let me see. That would be filled out at right about $8 would fill out that gap. Maybe that also gives you enough upward momentum that it can push the stock up higher, but it's going to hit a lot of resistance on its way up. So your best hope is it stays in this channel and builds some sort of consistency in its upward momentum, establishes support along all these blue lines. If you have a relatively cheap position, like if you got something here, or even if you got something in here, these could all be price targets for you to start trimming, taking profit at, and then looking for a new entry point on a dip back down into the channel. I know I've said this 1,000 times, but just a reminder, the way that we play the channels is we buy a dip, which is at the bottom portion of the channel, once we confirm that it's holding the channel, and then we take profit toward the top of the channel. Or even if you want to be more conservative, you can do it toward the middle, what would be the upper half of the channel. So, if it started to come up here, and then this was about halfway up the channel, and you said, okay, I'm going to take some profit off the table at 7 just to lock it in. And then maybe it continues to go up, and then you're like, okay, we're getting really close to the top, so I'm going to take it at 750. And you're like, whoa, we're at the top. Okay, I'm going to take the rest of my profit at about 780. And then, you'd be assuming it's going to come back down and test that area of the channel some more. So that's the idea with any channel play, but that's what I'd be looking for from WIMI. If you do see some price strength, this is obviously right now toward the bottom of the channel and in good dip buy range, but it would have to show some strength because, like I said, the broader chart, the longer term chart is just on the very sad side of things as we zoom out here. Yeah, so if you see that, that's not the chart of promise. All right, SUNW, which I have played in the past, but it was like when it had that, I think it was like toward the beginning of the year run up when a lot of the growth stocks were kind of in explosion mode. So, let's zoom out a little bit to the 2 hour just so I can show you. This is sort of like a beacon or a lighthouse or a spotlight kind of configuration here, meaning there's this unified peak up here, and then there's 2 trend lines coming off of it. One that's a little bit tighter down here. You see it catches all of this in it, and then when that one was broken, it sort of exposed this other sort of less aggressive downtrend. So maybe it's flattening out a little bit, which sometimes to get price strength and reverse a downtrend, you just have to flatten it out first, and then you can actually work on rebuilding and recovering the price of the stock. So, I would just be cautious if it gets, much like it would in a channel, if it gets stuck in this area here and stays within the spotlight range. Because the problem is this spotlight range, as you see, it's very tight up here, but as it gets further away from this high point, it spreads out. And so it gives you a lot of wiggle room in which this price could bounce back and forth and kind of look like it's doing things, but it's actually still just continuing a long-term downtrend and just getting sucked into this black hole of sadness. So I would be cautious on that with SUNW. We can zoom back in a little bit here and sort of show you the initial points where I would look for recovery levels at. So 1422, if I can get support on that right now, that would be the best case scenario just simply at this moment. And then run-ups to 1533, 1606, 1693, 1747. So if you get some action upward and you have a decent cost basis, those could be good areas to trim, take profit on. If we get over 1750, then we could certainly look for additional price targets above that, and at that point it would be following some type of an uptrend which would have started off with these 2 very low and then higher low. That could be the beginning of something, but we've seen several times a trend line being drawn when there's this kind of activity where it's like a half of a sad face that causes the 2 lows, and it's just often proves to not be as reliable as something that was like making higher lows like this. So that's what I would look for on this one. I had my original stop loss area in this 1193. To me, it's still respecting that zone. As we see, it's still bouncing off that area in a recent past, and even the 1270 above it. So I think that any of these zones below it, to the point at which any of those reach the limit of your risk tolerance or your tolerable loss level, I would feel comfortable kind of setting a stop loss at any of those points, just to kind of be able to reallocate the funds into a stock that's looking a bit more promising. RBLX. Not familiar with it, but I've definitely heard of it, and I don't know why, but who knows? Well, it's relatively new, so that's one thing. And so, maybe it's just from that. But it started this channel on 3/24, so March 24th, and you know, it's April 7th now. I thought it was the 6th. Okay, it's April 7th, and so it's been in this channel for several days, which is nice to see. Right now, it's in really good dip buy area on the channel, being that it's testing the lower bound at the moment. For myself, I would like to see what it does as it comes off of that. Does it pop itself down through the channel and break the channel? And if so, does it get a quick bounce off 66.72 and come back up into the channel? To me, that would be okay to play. If it comes down and gets stuck and falls through 672, to me, I would be looking, you know, to not take a position. Or if I had one, I'd be looking at like a cut loss there of 64.07, which, you know, based on entry points that people had, you know, maybe if you bought way up here, it would feel like really crappy, but that's not tremendously terrible. I mean, I can't say what feels terrible to other folks, so maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's not like a 50% loss, at least. Again, maybe if you bought at the top, it would feel like it. But dip buy zone, you know, toward the bottom of the channel here, depending on if it establishes some strength. I see some support, well, currently resistance, but could turn to support 72.24, 73.89, and then you have a bit of a gap here, which could be a nice little run up to 76.19 and then 77.71. So those would be my like take profit. So say I were to dip buy this tomorrow at open right here around say $69. You know, I would start trimming potentially at 72 and then take some off the table at high 73s and then ride a bit of it up to 76. You know, if those continue to hold, that would be the areas that I'd be looking for and where I'd be trimming out and looking to take profit. All right, well, hopefully this was helpful for any folks who are looking at these tickers. And I hope no matter what you're trading this week, that it's off to a good start. I wish you all the best, and I will see you in the next video.